Welcome back. Now, a recent survey titled How India Sleeps 2025 highlights that 59% of Indians receive less than 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep each night. I guess I'm among them. The survey gathered responses from over 43,000 citizens across 348 districts in India, with 61% participants being men and 39% being women. Now, among those experiencing sleep disturbances, 72% cited waking up to use the washroom as the primary reason, 25% said they could not sleep due to poor schedules, 22% due to external noises and mosquitoes, and 9% due to medical conditions such as sleep apnea. 9% also due to interruptions from their partner or child. Both of them are on the same level, and 6% face sleep disturbances due to mobile calls or messages. The report linked inadequate and fragmented sleep to various health conditions, including cardiovascular diseases, metabolic disorders like type 2 diabetes, and cognitive impairment. It emphasized that disrupted sleep can have lasting effects on brain function, physical health, and emotional well-being. The survey also examined how Indians attempt to recover from sleep loss. While 36% reported taking Sunday afternoon naps, 23% extended the sleep on weekends, and 13% caught up on rest during holidays. So, are you sleeping well? And if not, what should you do? Let me go across to my guests who are joining me to explain that further. Dr. H N Mallick is president of the Indian Society for Sleep Research. Dr. Bhavna Barmi is a noted clinical psychologist, and Dr. Mrinal Sarkar is director and head of pulmonology at critical care at Fortis India. Thank you all for joining me at this point. Let me begin with Dr. Mallick first. As a researcher who has extensively studied patterns of sleep and sleep deprivation, do these findings really surprise you, Dr. Mallick, that Indians are sleeping lesser and worse than before?
I was going through the data you are presenting. What is the source of this data actually? Hello?
Well, Dr. Mallick, it's a study done by this organization called LocalCircles. I can get my team to send you the PDF report which that's there, in which they have explained the sample size and methodology and all that.
This is not the authentic source, not from any scientific publication,
Okay.
basically media publications. But however,
Yes.
59% that is not true actually. India has a 70% rural population. It could be linked to metro population, I can agree.
Okay, but in your understanding, Dr. Mallick, have you come across instances, or is your own research giving any indication as to whether in urban population, that's where our viewers are, in urban India, due to the increased stress of modern lifestyles, are people sleeping lesser, or is the quality of sleep any less compared to what was earlier the case?
Yeah, they are sleeping lesser, around more than 1 hour lesser. The urban population.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mallick, for giving us that baseline. Let me go across to Dr. Mrinal Sarkar. Dr. Sarkar, you are one of the nation's most known pulmonologists. Yeah, one of the key findings which was indicated in this survey of LocalCircles is that sleep apnea is a major cause at this point. Could you shed more light as to what sleep apnea actually is, and how that can be corrected? Because more and more Indians, especially more and more urban residents we're talking to, are facing the victims of this problem.
So sleep apnea is one of the causes of sleep disturbance at night. And so what sleep apneas are, majority of them are what we call obstructive sleep apnea. So the air passage tends to get blocked off partially or completely multiple times every hour while asleep. And this is called obstructive. There's a small set of patients where air passage remains open, but there is a problem at the brain level, so the signals for breathing gets depressed. So those are central apneas. So as far as obstructive sleep apneas are concerned, the major cause is obesity, thyroid disorders, and to an extent the facial structure. So some people, from the nature of their genetics, they tend to have a narrow passage of air passage. So they tend to block off this. So whenever the person has partial block of the air passage, and that happens because the muscles become lax during sleep. So on a usual person, would rest of the body muscles will go slack during sleep, but the muscles which keep the air passage open remain alert and keep the passage open, so the air can go in and out the lungs comfortably. Though with sleep apnea, this mechanism gets affected in some ways,
Okay.
and therefore the air passage gets blocked out. When it's partially blocked, the air actually has to go through a narrower aperture and therefore at greater speed, and that causes certain amount of turbulence and vibration of the soft tissues of throat and neck, and that produces the snoring sound.
Mm-hmm.
And usually, the tighter the block, louder the snoring. Till, of course, a situation may come where the snoring abruptly stops because the air passage gets completely blocked off. Once the air passage gets blocked off, there is obviously certain changes such as drop in oxygen levels in the blood, increase in carbon dioxide levels in the blood, etc. And this causes the brain higher centers to notice that there is a life-threatening, potentially life-threatening episode happening. So signals go to the sleeping centers, and person is woken up. As soon as they wake up, within few seconds, the air passage is open up again, the breathing becomes normal, and the person goes back to sleep without being even aware most of the time that they have been woken up. When we do some tests for this, which is called in simple language a sleep test, uh, which is basically monitoring the various parameters while a person is asleep using some fancy equipments. Sometimes we find that people are blocking out their air passage as much as 30 to 60 times an hour. And people are not much aware, except they say that they are more fatigued, they are more tired, they tend to be sleepy during the daytime, and sometimes fall asleep, say in middle of a meeting or while driving a car. So this is what sleep apnea is about.
All right. So you've mentioned, doctor, about a number of physiological triggers that may cause sleep apnea and other related sleep disorders. Let's not talk about the psychological factors. Dr. Bhavna Barmi, one would assume conventionally that in a lifestyle which is even more tiring than ever, as they say, given the fact that given how stressful work has become or how stressful family life or a daily struggle to live has become, one would assume that people are getting tired out a bit more, and that would logically translate into better and more sleep. However, that often from lived experiences doesn't seem to be the case. And very recently, I came across this term called revenge bedtime procrastination, where people might be tired, but they still have this urge to try and scroll through reels and be on the internet for a while, even though it's late into the night and their bodies are dead tired. What, according to you, are some of the reasons why people still can't sleep well despite being so incredibly tired through the day?
Uh,
Dr. Bami, I think you're muted at this point.
Sorry. I think the importance of a good sleep is what we need to understand. Because a lot of these other ways, what you're talking about, are being directly correlational to rest, which is what our mind is understanding. So, what is very important is to understand that the importance of good sleep goes far beyond just feeling rested. It is actually the cornerstone of overall health, is what my mind needs to see, that it is the cornerstone of my mental well-being and optimal functioning, because my good sleep directly impacts my brain, body and emotions, and plays a crucial role in maintaining my physical health, mental clarity and emotional balance. So when I understand that I am taking away one of the most important parameters from my life, under the pretext of saying I'm de-stressing by watching reels, I'm resting by doing other activities, we need to come back to the fact that I understand the importance of sleep in myself, because sleep definitely promotes brain health and cognitive functioning. There's memory consolidation. During deep sleep, the brain actually consolidates and processes information gathered throughout the day. And that is what our focus should be. Because if we don't sleep well, this lack of a good quality of sleep can have severe and long lasting effects on a person's, especially emotional and mental health. And sleep and mental health are deeply connected. Poor sleep, in fact, triggers a lot of psychological issues, and even pre existing mental health concerns can worsen through these poor sleep patterns. And I think there's a lot of correlation that we've seen between increased anxiety and restlessness. And then what you ask is, to reduce this anxiety, we take on these other distracting methods. We want to watch the screen, we want to watch the television, we want to watch reels, we want to get onto the WhatsApp, and all that is inversely proportional to our sleep, which becomes directly proportional to building up our anxiety. So, actually, a poor sleep heightens the brain's threat perception, causing increased worry, nervousness, and restlessness. And then the body stays in this fight or flight mode, making it harder to regulate emotions. And thereby, we start choosing all these kind of activities to do. So it's actually a very, very vicious cycle, but it's very important to know that higher risk of mental health, higher risk of anxiety, and higher risk of depression happens with sleep deprivation. Because we all know that, sleep deprivation impacts the release of serotonin, which is the happiness hormone, which directly
Indeed,
regulates
yeah.
our mood and emotions. And these reduced serotonin level makes individual more vulnerable to again using all these distractions. So it's a very, very vicious cycle, one which I think needs awareness. And we need to be cognizant of what are some of the things that we are doing, which are actually not restful or de-stressing, but are actually taking away rest and causing stress into us, because it takes away one of the very important parameters, which is sleep. And we have all these major sleep disruptions then. And we are also then again isolating from good social activities, because we are engaging in all these kind of tools that you're talking about.
Dr. Sarkar, almost every ailment I've known, or every other or someone close to me has known over the last several years, the treatment has often started with having good food and sleeping on time. If you could add on to what Dr. Barmi was saying, and from a physiological level, can you talk about the problems of improper or deprived sleep in terms of the havoc it can wreak on the body?
So, should I answer that?
Yes, Dr. Sarkar, that question was to you.
Yeah, okay. So the sleep apnea, which I spoke of, actually has a lot of medical implications. So people with sleep apnea have higher incidence of hypertension, BP, they have higher chances of getting diabetes, they have higher chances of getting heart disease, including heart attacks, and also have higher incidence of getting strokes or paralytic attacks. Besides this, they have a higher incidence of accidents. So accidents while driving, or if they are working in working environment where it involves some machinery parts, then these are the people who are prone to more accidents. Also, over a period of time, studies over a long period of time, they have found that the death rates are higher, or the lifespans are shorter with sleep apnea, unless it is corrected. Once the treatment is applied for these patients, and these things get normalized. So it's important to pick up the sleep apnea at an early stage before the medical
Okay.
complications start emerging. Because once they emerge, then it's difficult to reverse things like diabetes and hypertension.
All right,
And of
Dr.
course,
Mallick, Dr.
like
Barni, and Dr. Sarkar,
the
thank
other
you so much for
panelists
joining us
mentioned,
on this very important
yeah,
discussion here. But there are, of course, other issues
thank you.
also that come out in this point. Lack of sleep deprivation is not the only unhealthy habit that we deal with. Diet trends also come and go, some extremely harmless and others extremely dangerous. In a tragic incident, an 18-year-old girl from Kerala, identified as Srinanda from Kutuparamba succumbed to complications caused by anorexia after reportedly following an extreme weight loss diet based on YouTube advice. Srinanda had been battling the eating disorder for nearly 6 months, during which she drastically reduced her food intake, often surviving only on hot water. Despite her family's concerns, she hid her condition until her health deteriorated severely. Her family took her to Kozhikode Medical College, where doctors advised proper nutrition and psychiatric support. However, her condition worsened, leading to a critical drop in blood sugar and breathing issues. She was later admitted to Thalassery Cooperative Hospital, where doctors found that she weighed just 24 kgs and was already bedridden. This heartbreaking case highlights the dangers of unverified online diet trends and the importance of early intervention in eating disorders.